Perfect. All right. So, what is going on, beautiful people? As you can see, I'm joined here by my love and angel, Avea.
Hi, everyone.
And we have a very special treat for you today, where, as you know, those of you who have been following our posts, we have two very magical guests joining us who have impacted both of Avea and mine lives so deeply.
Yes.
They are just, I never know how to describe them, you know?
Yeah, I agree. You just kind of have to experience them for yourselves, honestly, because there really are no words.
Yeah, they are very much, I love to call them ascending masters. They are wisdom keepers. They are liberation artists, and they are just emanations of love, quite simply. And so to jump right into it, let's just take a moment to welcome Shekinah and Sananda. Welcome.
Thank you, beloved.
Blessings, beloveds. It's always a joy to be with you both.
It is always a joy to be with you both. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And, you know, to jump right in, you know, what we felt inspired to talk about today was the idea of the journey of becoming your deepest, most truest, most magical self, and the idea of embodying your divinity and what that really means, as well as the ego traps that can arise along the way. And one of the things, or one of the stories that I'd love to lead with to ignite this sharing is, you know, I remember, and this is one of my favorite stories, when I first met you guys about a year and a half, 2 years ago, you know, at first when I met you guys, I had judgment come up, and because I wasn't used to seeing people like you, and I was honest with myself and knew that came up, and at the same time, I recognized that was my ego. You know, I recognized that represented somewhere where I was judging myself, and so I remained open and just listened to you guys. And after experiencing you and listening to you, it just blew my mind and my heart how coherent, how wise, how loving, and how grounded you actually both are, regardless of, you know, how I may have been perceiving you. And after having spent some time with you and then being invited into your beautiful home, or where you used to live, you know, you were helping me out with some things around love, and I was just so mind blown. And then the question kept arising to me where I had to ask it. I was just like, you know, you guys are so profound, so impactful, so wise. And I asked, I'm like, but what's with the Jesus and Mary swag? You know, and I'm like, don't you guys want to be more relatable so that more people can reach you? And then without skipping a beat, Shekinah just looked me in my eyes and said, embodying your divinity is the most relatable thing you can do. And I was speechless. My mind was blown, because what you said was just so simple, so true, and so profound. And so I'd love it if you could speak into that and what that means in terms of embodying your divinity and how that's the most relatable thing you can do.
Well, to start with, it has nothing to do with appearance. You know, it's so funny. We look how we look because we look how we look. You know, when it comes to, you know, grooming, like I mentioned earlier, I haven't cut my hair for 10 years, and there's a significance to that because I understand what the hair is really
representing, what it means, and how it connects to the divine.
And then what it represents is your antenna, in a sense. And it doesn't mean you don't have an antenna if you don't have hair. So you're in luck, David.
Yes.
but it's, you know, when you naturally grow your hair, it does grow to a certain length, and it just stops growing at that point. And I barely shave, so or trim. So, you know, these things, this is just how we show up, because it's natural for us to be comfortable, and everything that we wear, we always support sustainable, you know, local and artists that
we create our own,
and we work with them to create our own clothes that are comfortable to us. So it's sort of, it's nothing to do with appearance. I know that we started off like, you look like this, but really that has nothing to do with it. And you learn more of that as you've come closer and learned more from us.
And for us, we've only been on this planet, this is our third time ever being on this planet, so we also have an inherent intrinsic memory of what we know, right? And so what we know transmits in everything that we do. What we know transmits in how we dress. It's part of ritual. It's part of ceremony. How can you live your life in ceremony every moment? And so everything we do is very purposeful, but not created through its intention of purpose. It just is.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we wanted to start with that, just to void all notions of what becoming spiritual is to look exotic or to be a certain appearance. It has nothing to do with that. Spirituality is very sobering, to be honest.
It has nothing to do with, this is just part of the play, right? Why not play in the world? We always say this is your temple. Well, how do you treat your temple? You walk into a temple and you give an offering. You walk into a temple and there is an aesthetic to that temple. So everything and in every way, we are a temple, and we are here to remind you of your temple, of your sacredness, of your presence. So the way I perceive it and the way beloved Sananda has shared it is one and the same. It is just a different reflection of the same piece.
Yes. And that sacred ritual and honoring, no matter whether it's being dressed, whether it's brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, making yourself food, whether it's doing your yoga practice, your meditation practice, whether it's going to work, commuting to work, whether it's walking, whether it's singing, whatever it may be that you do, how you do it becomes ritual when you have pure intention of what is inside you first. And so it doesn't really matter what you do as long as it's being done with the most purest expression within you. And then it becomes ritual because you're living in the sacredness of life. And because life is truly sacred, there is no moment of life that isn't sacred.
Exactly.
And when you honor that and you acknowledge that, your inner reality becomes the expression of your outer reality.
Beautiful. And so with that said, what does embodying your divinity mean to you? So for example, if let's say someone's grandmother was listening to this, or someone who isn't apt to spiritual language or may have religious associations, what does embodying your divinity mean to you?
Virtue. We'll go straight into virtue. That which is virtuous, that which is true, that which is what this entire expression of the universe is made from, and that is love. There is no greater virtue than truly understanding the depth of what love means and the nakedness that occurs when you truly allow yourself to express and experience love on all levels and layers of your being.
And when it comes to this virtuous quality, what it's not is something that you have to try to do. If you're trying to be loving, or you're trying to be appreciative, or you're trying to do something, that's not what we're saying, because what we're literally saying is remove the very obstacles that prevent your true nature from shining through. So you speak about the journey of becoming. It's not so much about becoming someone or something. This is this spiritual trap where people look at the world of success and they want to have success in life. And then eventually it comes to more spiritual ambitions and they want to have more success in spirituality. And there's this perception that it's about becoming someone different. It's about becoming,
negates it altogether.
It's about becoming another, better ego, basically. And that's not the point at all. What you already are is perfect, whole, and complete. What you already are is that pure source of love. So it's not about becoming something, it's actually unbecoming. You undo all the conditioning that you've actually thought it's about. And once you undo that, your natural essence shines through. And that natural essence is love in action, is righteous, is virtuous. So it's not about becoming something or someone, because that's just another image that you have to transcend, essentially. So it's about undoing these conceptual models, these conceptual ideas of what spirituality is or means to be someone else. It's not about that. It's about stripping yourself back to your essence and then letting go of all the falsities, letting go of all the dualities, letting go of all the associations of separation. And then when you're just left there in pure awareness, pure divinity, that is the very front of this ability to have life, when you're left in that presence, that divine primordial presence, that's it. with no thoughts, with no imagery, with no objectification, with no subjectification, with none of those overlays. There's this purity there. There's just this pure radiance that shines through. And that's what everyone truly is. But the difference is this: for a realized mind or an enlightened mind to an unenlightened mind, the difference is that the conditions within the mind, the conditioned behaviors, the conditioned concepts, the conditioned beliefs, the limitations that have been so deeply conditioned, that is in the causal instrument that's actually before the brain itself and the mind itself and the operation.
Borrows from it.
Before the mind takes action, it borrows from its unconscious conditioning, which is not just this lifetime. There's parental conditioning, societal conditioning, cultural conditioning, past life conditioning, soul conditioning. There's all these different conditionings at
planetary conditions.
Yeah. And so once you release that by realizing that you're not that, that's about what manifesting divinity is. It's letting go of all the things that are preventing the natural emanation of life and light and love to naturally shine through. And so it's an undoing process. It's an unlearning process. It's releasing and relinquishing yourself from the objectification of being this individual, which is in divide. And when you let go of the individual narrative and persona and all of that, you're left with freedom. But it's not enough to just go, okay, well, I'm just going to be in awareness now. I'm just going to be the observer right now. No, it's not enough. You have to penetrate the stillness that goes beyond the mind. You have to penetrate the deep gnosis of the actuality and the realization of God in its totality. You have to realize that and not allow the layers to prevent one from perceiving separation again. And when you drink from the nectar of that heavenly bliss and that heavenly truth, then expression of that doesn't become something that you're doing. It's just what you are as being.
I love it.
That was beautiful.
So beautifully said. I've once heard you share that unconditional love is a love that unconditions the mind. Which I've never heard anyone say that before. And I just thought that was so profound. And so, with everything that you shared, because you made clear that embodying your divinity is quite simply embodying the virtue of love, or embodying the love that you truly are, and unbecoming all these things that you think you might need to become, or that you have become, these conditions, right? And so, so for those who are listening and understanding this, and then wondering to themselves, okay, well, then how do I truly embody pure love? When I have so many triggers, so many perceived problems, so many conditionings, what is the practical way that I can do to begin to truly embody love and have a tool set to navigate myself through life?
Beautiful question.
Well, for starters, the perception of problems, the perception that there is something to fix, the perception that there is something that is wrong, the perception that everything is not in absolutely perfect, harmonious order and orchestration is what we begin with. Because when we understand, if you truly want to take initiative and control of your reality, you must know that your soul has chosen all of your experiences, and that it has chosen those experiences because there is a learning here. There is something that has not yet been fully realized with the real I, right? The part of you that is connected to the all that is. And that comes deep from the wells within you, as well as connects in various places within your chakras and different vortexes of other areas that are not considered chakras, right? And these are this is more of an ancient science. More esoteric.
But the biocircuitry system, essentially.
Right, your tree of life. And so as the real I realizes what is God and recognizes that an ego will never know God, an ego can never know God. That is why when you go to the foot of the throne of God, no human can ever come back from it. No man can ever return from that. Because once you are there, you are laid bare. There is nothing that that is not seen through directly. And that takes great courage.
Yeah, and at a practical level, being kind, not because you want something from someone or because you want something from others, but because it is the goodness of your heart, truly, and being kind and being generous and being loving and being compassionate, like we spoke earlier about virtues. When you do them with a pure heart, that way of expression in life is also self-purifying. Like, so if you're devoted to something, whether it's your family, whether it's to God, whether it's to your spiritual teacher, whether it's to nature, whether it's to all of it, whatever that devotion is, when you devote yourself to something greater than the small self, the limited self, and you devote yourself to a greater truth, it creates a dissolution of the separated self. So devotion is dissolving into love, like the devotion just to love itself. When there's a devoted heart and you pray with all your heart, not for what you need for yourself, but you pray for others, and you're selfless in your merit and your action, and you pray and you pray so intensely that you tear up because your heart is so pure that it cries for the love of others. That is a way that can purify your heart and mind. So that's the way of devotion. There's a way of selfless action when you give freely, that you give because it's your nature. You give because you love for the sake of love itself, and you're giving selflessly. You may see a homeless person, you don't see this person, and you cast judgment onto them of how they got to that situation. But you go and get them a blanket, or you offer them food, or you can go and sit with them and talk to them. They're a human. You sit with them and you actually connect with them, and you share love with them, and you become a friend with them, and also just anybody for that matter, whether it be anyone that you see. You can just be a gentle smile. That can be a loving act of kindness. You don't have to do these grandiose things that have to completely shift your paradigm. Just be a true, authentic expression of your heart. And when you do that authentically, not because you try to gain something from it, you start learning that there's two keys to have a successful life. There's two things that master life. Very, very simple. Pure intention within and righteous action. So the pure intention is that devotion to love, devotion to the all-loving one, to God, to source, to whatever elicits that true connection that goes beyond mind, that goes beyond feeling, that goes into this unity of truth, where you and me disappear into this eternity of what is. And then when you have action righteously, you live righteously, you give righteously. What's righteous? Righteous is right use of energy. So you're living in alignment, you're living in presence, you're living in the purity of the moment. And when you come from that space, what you're seeding into reality is then returning back to you. And you seed and you seed and you seed and you sow, not because you want to reap all these benefits, but because it's your nature and that becomes your reality itself. So spirituality, to be fully authentic on a spiritual authentic path, you first take responsibility. You accept everything that comes to you. It's all your karma. You accept it as it comes. And you see it all as perfect. You don't complain. If you really want to be spiritual, stop complaining. We say this all the time to our students.
You relinquish your right to complain, for judgment, for criticism, for victimhood. You relinquish all of that.
And when you do that, and you be steadfast with that, that becomes your practice. Life becomes your meditation. Meditation isn't a mental activity that you have to do.
Yes.
Meditation is living. How are you living your life? Be meditative, be present. And then, yes, there is an esoteric science as well, where we get into all the higher level advanced stuff, where there's also this understanding of your entire instrument is this alchemical laboratory. It's a microcosm of the entire macrocosmic universe, and everything is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent on each other. And then there's a different science. There's a holy science that is the very makeup of your reality. That is the path of alchemy. That is the path of that cultivating greater light, cultivating the light body, cultivating that pure spirit.
And we are stewards of that.
Yeah. And then there's also another path, which is like the path of gnosis, the path of knowledge, having that self-knowledge, having that knowledge of such truth that it's not a transactional knowledge. It's not like, okay, well, I do this and I get this. It's a knowledge that isn't temporary. It's a knowledge that is everlasting. It's not a knowledge that comes and it's true 1 minute. It's true for one person, or it's true for another person, or another situation. That's temporal truth. That's empirical. The truth that we speak of is this eternal truth, which is synonymous with love and with God. And so when there's these four, what we call the supreme paths, and they're also yogas. It's the yoga of devotion, the bhakti yoga, the yoga of service, selfless service is karma yoga or seva. There's the yoga of higher wisdom through meditation, which is more somatic. So that's somatic, which transcends minds, and that gnosis, yoga of gnosis. And then there's the yoga of truth absolute. But you can't fake truth. That's the thing. You can't be like, oh yeah, I'm God's, and I've realized that. If you do say that, that means what you're saying is that you never have a problem ever again. You never, ever, ever. If you are courageous to pierce through the ego and the lower self and realize truth absolute, it's most humbling. It's most purifying. And what that means is that you'll never have a problem ever again. Never again. You never have any suffering. You live in bliss. You live in joy. There's no more complaining. But we know that's not people's reality. Even though they want to claim, like, I'm divinity embodied, and I'm God, and I'm
talking to that.
It's like, well, okay, how are you living that? Is it authentic? Is it real, or is it an idea?
Yeah. In the West, there's this belief system that everyone is their own guru, right?
Which in fact,
in and of itself, that is true.
Yeah, G, you are you.
But G means soul. That means that you are living fully 100%. It actually means spirit. Yeah. So that means that you are living as spirit. If you are saying that you are in fact your own guru, what does this mean? This means that you don't need a teacher. That means you don't watch YouTube. That means you don't read books. That means that you don't need to listen to anybody. That means you don't go to counseling for anybody. You are fully 100% sustained within yourself at all times. And that means that you are also living as spirit. Then you can say that. Then you can say that. When you have no problems, you have no conflict, you have no inner conflict. There is no sword by which you feel the need to wield, to create an effect to hurt another in any way, shape, or form, or to take over or empower yourself by taking from another. Then you can start to say that. So in the West, there's this, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
do you want to further that?
Yeah, when it comes to the notion of a teacher, everyone wants to be their own. Like, no, I don't have a teacher. I'm very much my own sovereign self. This is certain people ascribe to this belief model, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing is this: in antiquity, a teacher was actually revered. It would be the greatest insult for yourself to say, I don't have a teacher. Oh no, I'm doing this myself. They'll be like, you'd be cast aside. You'd be like, whatever you're saying is not validated. So whatever you speak now, you have no validation. So basically there's no authentication of whatever you speak. So you've just basically ruined your chances of anyone listening by just saying that, like, oh, I don't have a teacher. Because everything's a teacher. I mean, really, everything in life is a teacher. Every single thing is teaching you essentially. and that is very confronting for someone. But when you meet a teacher that pierces through the veils, pierces into your heart, moves you, you feel uplifted by, you feel joyful by being in their presence. You feel like in deep contemplation, you have these revelations.
It's aha moment after aha moment after aha moment.
That's noble. That's something to honor. That in antiquity, that was the greatest honor. That was the greatest blessing, which all the students would like, and the parents would bless their children to be like, maybe hopefully one day you will reach and have a true teacher that will teach you the way for freedom. So it was always the highest prize. But what happened in the Western era is that people, took that word, which guru is really the one that dispels darkness.
That's all it means. It means from darkness to light.
Yeah, just as when the sun rises, the darkness fades. And what happens is you see things clearly. On a beautiful day where it's not overcast and it's a clear blue sky, when that sun rises and the darkness dissolves, you can see reality very clearly. And you see things clearly. And when you see things clearly, you see truth. You aren't deluded in an illusion of separation anymore. You see it as it is. And that's what a guru does. And so Guru Shisha, which is basically an ancient term that speaks of the loyalty of a student and teacher relationship, was never to give one's power away, because the student knew he had no power, because the ego doesn't have any power.
And the teacher the guru doesn't need power.
Yeah, like when you're love,
power.
what there's no greater power in the entire universe than love itself. When you have that truth, that love, it's so self-sustaining, and you see everything as that, then what do you need? A teacher that needs a student's power, I mean, that's unheard of. That's just a ludicrous statement. So this whole idea of sovereignty, like we've said many times, is ridiculous, because you have to be sovereign first. And if you're still operating through your minds, where the mind's based on conditions and belief models and perceptions and judgments and duality and separation, there's no sovereignty there. If you're still thinking there's a them and us versus them, me versus them, wow, that you haven't even started.
You haven't even begun.
Yeah, spiritual 101 is so simple. It's discerning truth between illusion. And that's what a teacher represents. And a true teacher, they're not teaching you something that you don't know, that you're learning, you're unlearning what you thought you knew. And then you go, oh my gosh, wow, that blew my heart open. It's universal truth. It's that self-conviction that comes with that truth. It carries that. If you don't embody and you're just talking it because you learn it from a book or you learn it from someone, it has no weight. It doesn't carry. But when it's lived, when it's embodied, when it's a full expression of that, when you live your life with that, when you say that, that transforms lives. There's no mountain that becomes an obstacle. Everything is parted, and there's a truth of that salvation. And every single sage, every single saint, every single prophet, every single God realized being has sung the same tune of this freedom.
Every single one.
And that freedom is here and now and available for everyone. It's your birthright, but you have to be willing to give everything.
And this is where courage comes in. I started talking about how courage is so necessary right now, to face the depths of you, to really go deep and to see all of your reflections. How are these reflections really representing the deeper aspects of your unconscious mind? If you're affected by something or affected by someone in some way, how is that a part of you that you have not yet found within you? All of these reflections, this entire world, if you can't recognize, a guru looks at a student and says, there go I. There go I. I am a part of this expression. I am a part of this sadness. I am a part of this suffering that is going on right now, not to identify with it, not to say and then take that on as ownership, but to know that the one is always experiencing its multiplicity in these ways to return back home, to return back to love. And that's what a true teacher does. It dispels the darkness and brings the light.
Yeah, and we don't personify ourselves as gurus. We don't personify ourselves as teachers. We don't personify ourselves as anything. You know, we just show up as love because that's all we are. That's all that is. And through that, sometimes we teach, and sometimes we are a parent, sometimes we are healer, sometimes we're alchemists, and sometimes, you know, just the different modes of expression. It's just sometimes we show up in different roles and responsibilities, but it's always love at the heart.
It's caregiving at every single level. And for us in our community, that's one of the main things that we do is caregive in every single way. And, you know, beloveds come to us from all over the world with their asking for blessings or asking for healings or asking for just miracles to abound, and they do. And the moment that it's asked of us, it is brought forth. If it is, in fact, the highest alignment for the soul and for the all that is, to be able to give this blessing and bestowment.
But we see everyone as our family.
Everyone's
our family. And we're just like mama and papa sometimes. That helps beloveds remember love and come back into their hearts. And we just love because that's all that really is. And when you take inventory on that and you reflect on that love, not the romantic idea or the Western version of love in its obsession with that feeling or that chemistry, but with a love that is unconditional. It doesn't want anything. It doesn't want anything in return. It just loves. It just loves because that's all that love does. It loves. And when you do that, because you are that, and you feel that, it takes you home. It takes you home so deep within.
This reminds me of a story with beloved David.
Oh yes, remember beloved David when you came to our Carlsbad temple in California, and you did ceremony with us, and you crawled up the stairs.
Like, or something. We were already.
Everyone had sort of closed down for the night, and you know. He couldn't walk at all, so he's courageous, starts crawls up this massive flight of stairs. It's like quite impressive, actually. And we hear this knock on the door, Shekinah, Sananda, and we're like,
"We're here, darling." Yes.
Okay. And we came straight over to and held you in our laps, and you know, just
you curled up right here, like a little like a baby cuddling.
That was honestly one of the most beautiful moments, just to speak into that for a moment. I was going through it. This was during the elixir ceremony, and I was going through my own experience after everyone had fallen asleep and you guys had gone to sleep. And, and like you shared, part of my experience and part of what I had to go through in my initiation was climbing all those stairs and going through the fear and insecurity of opening your bedroom door when I really needed help, and at the same time, I'm like, I can't just walk into their bedroom. I can't knock on their bedroom door, but I knew that's part of my learning in that moment was to be willing to ask for help when I feel most vulnerable. And and I just remember that when I did knock and I did open the door and you did come and I laid in Shekinah's lap and Sananda, you had your hand on my heart. One of the things that I most remember, aside from laughing and crying like a madman, was was the experience of how the potency and depth of your love, there's certain pains and wounds inside of us that I've noticed won't even be revealed unless there's a certain love present where it feels safe enough to reveal itself so that it can be transmuted back into love, back into itself. And that's what I remember most about that moment, was knowing how safe I felt with the two of you and the love that was present. It allowed for some wounds I had no idea were even there to just bellow out of me. And I just cried and I laughed. And Shekinah asked me, if you could become anything in the world, what would it be? And I was just like, magic. And then I experienced magic, and yeah, it was a beautiful moment. And and this conversation reminds me of a quote, one of my favorite quotes, which says, I did not come here to teach you. I came to love you, and love will teach you.
Yes.
And that's,
I believe we shared that with you.
Yes, but that is the ancient quote. It's love will teach you. That is the only teacher. When you look at a flower, it is love that's teaching you at that moment. It is when you feel the wind upon your face and on your skin, it is that love that's teaching you, that's nourishing you and nurturing you in that moment. Only love can. Knowledge without love is stale. It's all mental. It doesn't have meaning. It doesn't have purpose. But love, like that devotion and that divine love with knowledge, that goes hand in hand. And when there's that unification of that, there's an embodiment of that, and everything is programmed to surrender to love, even if you don't want to. Really, like love, it will get you at the most surprising moments, and it will teach you. It will bring you to the greatest humility. It will bring you to your knees. It will bring you to your knees.
When you feel the level and the depth of love that we know, your body, if it's not really prepared, it can feel as though it's going to spontaneously combust, and it can feel so painful when you go even deeper than the initial feeling of it feels amazing, and you really keep penetrating and you keep penetrating. It can feel so painful.
And that pain is where you have denied yourself that love. That pain that comes up is when one has denied themselves to feel that love. They've turned away, they've been ignorant to accept that love. And whether it's because they're not forgiving someone, or because they're projecting on others, or they're still in the battle of their own inner dramas and traumas. But that when love dawns upon you and awakens within you, it can be so painful because it shows you all that has been denied. And that can be so confronting. It can be so obliterating, literally.
annihilating, obliterating.
To know God is to love God, and to love God is to know God. And when you love God with your whole heart and your whole mind, it transfixes you. And the whole point of having a teacher or having someone that is an instrument of that divinity is to harmonically induct you into that love, so you are brought back to your true self. And then you retrain or you unlearn all these falsities of notions of separation, and you become one with that. But it takes time. It does. The truth is eternal. It's not like, oh, I get there one day. It's how the mind, unwinds itself. Like we have shared, one of our, favorite quotes from all our students: unconditional love, unconditional is the mind, because it's a reminder that when you are unintentional with any sort of what I get from this, what am I going to receive from this love? I'll love you because you're my sibling, or that's because you're a family member of blood, or I know you and there's a familiarity to you. But we're talking about the love that the unlovable ones, the ones that really hurt you, the ones that absolutely cause pain, love them. Love the one. It's easy to love us. It's easy to love us because we are that. But what we say is love the ones that are. They've done certain actions that are inhumane. How am I supposed to love them? It's not their actions that you love. It's not their conditioning that you have to love. We don't believe that you have to like everybody, but love what they truly are beyond the delusion that they may be acting out.
Love knows no bounds.
Yeah.
That there's no boundaries that love has. And for me, I can say personally, when I came into the vessel, and you already know the story, beloved, so we're not going to go back into again, but when I came into the vessel and the original soul released completely, ever since that point, I can feel all of the cries, hear the prayers, and feel the pain of humanity and the animal kingdoms and queendoms. At this moment, I can feel all of it, but you have to understand that when you transcend that focus also dissolves into the beauty of love, all of it.
Because when you see all as God, how can God suffer? How can one die and one be born when God is unborn and timeless? There is no death and there was no birth. There never was, never will be. And when you are in that timeless presence of absolute truth, absolute love, absolute divinity, all is in the unconditional oneness of that. And that is the perfect love we speak of, because there's many that go, oh, how can you love when there's this sort of catastrophe or this sort of, all of it's love. It all plays a role. It all plays a role in it. Now, those roles are shifting because we're moving into a different time. We're moving into a golden age where there's more illuminations. There's more truth that's coming through. And so those actions that are inhumane will be purified and purged and cleared. Yes, that will happen. But still, it plays a role. That's important. There's a love that's unconditional. Like, we want to express that with such vehemence because the conviction of that truth, it's beyond this world. It's beyond this universe. It transcends this world. It's actually what holds it all together. And so what we also share is that it's not what the eyes can see. It's not what the ears can hear. It's not what the mouth can express or what the body can feel. It's that it can see. It's that it can hear, that you have this miracle of life to begin with. It's that you actually can feel. You have emotions. You can feel that love. Everyone has the birthright to be love and to express love and to feel that love. But when you go deep into that, it's a love that is not binding to certain particulars. It's a love that is ever unfolding and
deepening and maturing and flowing in every moment.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Oh, I love speaking to you guys. Oh, that was profound.
I think
I need a deep breath.
I had a couple of heartgasms.
Yeah.
Along the way.
Orgasms.
And one of the questions that arise with what you've been sharing is why is it so challenging sometimes to steep or release yourself into love when you're facing certain triggers, when you're facing certain traumas, especially when you've already had experience releasing these things inside yourself? So for example, you go through certain triggers or traumas and guardedness, and you're like, okay, what I did to release that last trigger is I recognized where I was protecting my heart and I let myself express, or I recognized where I was resisting love. And so you might think that, okay, that's all I have to do next time for the next trigger, for the next trauma. So why is it so challenging when there's a new thing, so to speak, that comes up, to apply what you did before to steep yourself back into love? And what do you suggest to make that more easeful?
Lovely question.
This is a very important question, but it's a very simple answer. And that's I. When you go I, you go, oh, I'm this pain, this trigger that's coming up. I'm having this trigger and pain that's coming up. Bum, bum. You're going back to this person. You're personifying these triggers, these pains as the mind, as the emotional body, as the body itself. You've re-identified yourself with the character in the story, and now you're bounded and binded by this character. And so what happens is that through this re-identification process, you go back into this pleasure-pain principle. You
return back to density.
Yeah.
Identity is the equivalent of identity. So every time you've decided to make an identification or a re-identification with the pattern that you've already had, for starters, that means that there's still particles of that pattern within you, because you are bringing it back into your life. You are bringing it through your field again, even if you feel like you've let it go. You haven't.
There's no you to let it go, right?
And there's no such thing as attachment.
So this is where it gets really, really interesting, is because this whole notion, like, that one suffers. What really suffers? The mind,
the ego.
The ego is flawed. Like, give it up. The ego is flawed. It will always create suffering. It will just create suffering upon suffering upon suffering. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do a healing and you can't go and do excavation. It doesn't mean that you now spiritually bypass, oh no, I'm truth absolute, I'm divinity. So those feelings, even if I play them out, that's not really me. No, it doesn't mean any of that. You don't become an emotional zombie because you realize truth. You actually fully engage with your emotions.
Quite the opposite.
And you actually live, fully engaged in this world, but you're just not of this world. You transcend this world. And everyone has heard that statements, but do they live it is the question. Now, the trick here is when that pain arises, or someone does something and triggers you, it's like, do you have to do that? You make me feel like this when you do that. Do you really have to do that? Like, if you didn't do that, I'll be fine. It's like all of a sudden you've gone, that's giving your power away, by the way.
Power away at that exact moment.
If there was such a thing as an ego having power, that would be it. That whole play. It's like, oh, if you didn't do this, I would be so much better. It's like, what is this?
Give that up already.
You're saying to yourself that your happiness is determined from others. Is like you're responsible for your own happiness. You know, that's what we've just said all along, is that you're responsible for your own love. You are the source of happiness. It's not like, okay, I have to do this to be happy. No, you can do things that bring out that happiness, but you don't do something to get something, right? If you do, you're in a tamastic binding. Tamastic meaning that it's veiled, right? You're not seeing truth. You're seeing delusion, you're seeing duality, and you're bounded by that. So as simple as this is, it's really hard still. Why don't I just, give it up and it doesn't repeat again? Because conditioning runs deep. It runs deep. It's the very fabric of your entire basis and the construct of your reality. And you think you're going to get rid of it all in one fell swoop because you've heard a beautiful satsang that's brought your heart to bliss, and then all of a sudden, my life's going to be completely changed.
Maybe.
If it does, that is possible, because we are believers of miracles. That is possible. But what it needs to accompany is a direct realization of that. This is why in ancient paths, definitely in yogic paths and traditions, they speak about samadhi. Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra speaks about samadhi. And he speaks about the whole path of meditation. And basically it's that absorption. That's what samadhi is. It's the transcendence of mind. And there's Salkalpa samadhi, which is divinity with attributes, which is experiencing the magic, the divinity of all of it playing out. And then there's Nirkalpa samadhi, and that's the absence of any attributes of divinity. It's just divinity with no attribute. It's absolute. Words will fail here because there's no way to explain this.
Because there's no
mind to
association with it.
Yeah, this is pure consciousness, and a mind that has been absorbed into that truth. That's where it shifts all of these conceptual models and causalities of beliefs and the social, cultural or economic belief systems that are based in your experience of life or as a human. It transcends all humanness. It transcends all mind. Anything that is perceived or conceivable, it transcends. That's why it's hard to understand this, because it's like, hang on, anything that is perceivable or conceivable or objectifiable or subjectifiable is transcended. I mean, that's reality itself, isn't it? No. Reality, the foundation of reality, is pure consciousness. And when you experience that is what is being known as enlightenment. But the truth is, that's always. It was never born. It never can come or go. But what happens is the mind filters it out. So you purify the mind. That's why we say 98% of the spiritual journey is purification, purifying the mind, purifying the hearts. And when you purify, what happens is that you reflect the divinity and you embody that divinity, that truth. And so when there is these triggers, what that's showing you is where the work needs to be done. Treasures. And that's, those triggers are treasures, because when you cherish them and you really love them, you transcend them. That's why we say unconditional love, unconditional mind, because when you unconditionally love yourself in those moments, I see, I'm going to go from, instead of be the persona, I'm going to be the witness right now, and witness that I feel this, but you're not your conditioning, simply because you are aware of your conditioning. Your conditioning happens within your awareness. And so when you acknowledge that and you sit with that, instead of you acting out and you react to life, you just actually come back and take a breath. And you learn how to breathe properly. You're not then caught up in this whole blame game syndrome. You don't get caught up. But what happens is that there's this serenity. There's like a moment. And there's a moment when you act out. Before you do it, you know it's wrong. You know, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then you get caught up in that. But then when you listen to that moment and you stay present with that moment, you stay present with your heart, and that moment starts expanding and expanding and expanding. And the more that you stay present with that moment, before you let the mind convince you otherwise, you say presence, all of a sudden, what feeling was, what thought was that? What? Let that be. But it doesn't void responsibility. You know, that's the thing here. It doesn't void your responsibility. It doesn't mean like, you can be authentic and go, you know what? There is an aspect of me that is playing up right now. I'm just going to sit with this. It has nothing to do with you, because what the mind will do, what the ego will do is go, oh, it's all about you. Oh, I'm feeling this because you're triggering me, or this is triggering me. What you say to yourself, very simply, this is a simple practice for anyone, has nothing to do with them. Take full responsibility. It has nothing to do with that experience, that event, that person, that circumstance, that situation. It has nothing to do with any of that. And the more that becomes a truth that's not just mental, but actually an embodied reality, the more that will prolong. And then there may come a time where, if you are devoted enough, where you are doing, you're taking action, the mind's no longer gripping and holding on to its support systems or beliefs. It starts slowly surrendering back to its home of love. It dissolves. And then there's more of a divine personage that comes through. There's more of a divine righteous nature that comes through. There's more of a virtuous nature that comes through. Not because you're trying, not because you're trying to look like someone, be like someone, feel like someone, because your nature is that bliss, immortal, unchanging bliss.
So beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'd love for you guys to expand on something specifically pertaining to, so Lion and I have both had the opportunity to meet you in person, to be in ceremony with you, and have had incredible experiences of just being in your presence and feeling the piercingness of the love and the things that come up that you have no idea wants to come up, because suddenly there's this love that just feels so infinitely safe that's present. And then, you know, I remember myself, I just started crying when Shekinah hugged me, and it was so beautiful. And and with that being said, there's a lot of people who are out there maybe looking at this live, listening to you, and perhaps having judgment, or perhaps the other side of the spectrum as well, like pedestaling you, who follow you and who are like, yes, and so yeah,
Shekinah and Sananda are perfect.
Yeah, they're perfect. They have all the answers. They can heal me, as well as the other side of the spectrum where it's like, oh, they must be fake. Like, I don't understand anything they're saying. Like, whatever it may be, they charge money or whatever. So yeah, I would love to hear just how you receive that, because being in a position where you are both so public, and you obviously give so much from your heart, that also gives a lot of space for people to project, to have opinions, to whatever it is, to venerate you, to worship, like the whole spectrum. So yeah, I would love to hear what that experience is like for you, and how you I keep wanting to say navigate, but I'm like, I don't feel like they navigate anything. But yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah. And perhaps
go ahead, beloved.
I was going to say, just to compliment what she was saying, and perhaps speaking into also what is a projection, and how someone could become aware if they're in a projection or not, you know, because there is there isn't not new thing, but that, it has become a defense mechanism when someone is told something of truth about themselves where they don't want to hear it. They go, oh, you're just projecting on me.
Yes, it's so true.
Right, so if you could speak into that as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, first of all, bless them, just bless them anyway, whatever spectrum they're in. And it actually has nothing to do with us. So for us, it's not like taking this personally, because really it has nothing to do with us when there is those negative projections, and there is that, we don't feel that anyone really worships or pedestals. What we do feel is that there is a loving respect and an honor. And what we do feel is that we are role models. We are role models that are here as embodiments of our teachings. And we know that that naturally inspires and ignites that love for others to come closer to that within themselves. And there's nothing wrong with having a role model, or having a teacher, or having someone that you love, and you respect dearly. There's actually, that's normal and natural and beautiful.
And this is what we teach. This is how we live, right? We live with reverence. We live with reverence for every step we take. We live with reverence for each other. We live with reverence for our students. This is our culture, right? It is of that making. And our students also respond with that reverence. Our students also respond with that love, because that is as we show up. Now, it is important to share that whether bowing at our feet or whether throwing a stone, we're not moving. We're not moving from the truth that we know. We're not moving. We're not here to venerate the ego. We're not here to help you with your personal ambitions trap that you will eventually find yourself in, whether this lifetime or many lifetimes down the road. People come to us from all over the world with a massive spectrum of their realities, of their psyches, of their own inadequacies that they perceive somewhere deep inside of them. You look to us for answers. We are an authority. We are not your authority. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the difference. You speak about becoming, right? What we're here to do is give clear reflection back. We are unprojectable. So just as though you want to throw something into the wind, it's probably going to send it right back to you at some point. So we are very much like throwing something in the air. There's nothing that's going to attach to us. By the same token, we honor deeply the space that everybody goes through in order to get and return back home here. What we serve as is a reflection of this back home. If you're not ready to go there, if you're not ready to really feel the depths of what is awaiting you, you will eventually, but we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and just to speak into this,
and we're not affected either way.
Yeah, and just to speak from a space of, we've had some of our closest, students that have turned their back on us, completely, and they weren't close in the sense of living situations or things like that. They were close in their sense of appreciation. There's an emotional appreciation and respect, and then just that shifts, and whatever shifts for them, whether they believe in duality or they believe in those perceptions that become projections. The difference that we see is that when beloveds are in our experience, in our reflection of our experience, there's an elicit of joy, of happiness, of love, of upliftment. And all these other things that happen, they never come to us. Like we even welcome it. We even like, okay, come to us, speak to us. You say it exactly to us, so we can, but they'll never ever come to us. One has ever come and said something to us because it has nothing to do with us. It's their reflection. You know, whatever they say or feel or do has nothing to do with us because it's not in our reality.
It's absolutely zero in our reality.
You know, but that's the thing. We even invite it, like, you know, share if there's any problems, like, you know, share from that. And you know, at the end of the day, the ego is going to do what the ego is going to do. Really, there's no freedom from the ego. The ego will always perceive and put a negative tarnish on anything. It will perceive as like that's too good to be true. So I'm just going to believe that that's not real. But what would you really want to believe in? Do you want to believe all the saints,
you want to believe in?
all the saints, all the sages, all the ones that have upheld truth for time immemorial, that speak of a freedom that is unchanging? Or do you want to believe that it's not possible?
That's going to be
that's up to you.
That's your choice.
And it has nothing to do with us, really. People can believe whatever they want about us. It doesn't matter. It's you know, like I said, look at them. It has nothing to do with us to begin with.
But there is a sort of a running theme that we do find if there is a situation like that occurs. Remember, we're talking about a handful of people generally. We're not talking about the tens of thousands of people that are, you know, connected with us, and we come into their meditations or into their dream spaces and do healings and teachings and lead them through things. We're talking about really a handful. But there's one theme here, and the theme is personal ambition.
Yes, that's what we notice. Every single one that we see, there's a personal ambition. Yes. Where I don't need a teacher, I'm my own, you know, teacher, and I don't, you know, that whole idea. It's like beautiful, you know. So like we said, everything we said earlier, we God bless you. May that be your real experience of life. May that be true for you.
Right. We're not here to validate the ego. We know what the traps of the ego look like. We are here to free the ego. And that sometimes looks like surrender. And that always looks like surrender. And that always looks like the willfulness that one comes to us with. We go like this too. We go, okay, now open your hands and let the flower bloom, right? Because in willfulness, nothing truly can happen. There is an opening that is in allowance. And if someone comes to us and they are asking, and they are coming only for validation of their own personal agendas, we're not going to do that.
No.
And that is vastly unpopular.
That's very unpopular. And another thing is that, just to be honest, we pedestal our beautiful students.
Oh, we certainly do.
Because we see them as love. We see them in their highest glory. We see them as their true self. And we uphold them to that. We pedestal them, not because of an ego construct, but we pedestal what they truly are as that love. We hold that in the highest regard. We hold that high to the heavens always. So, you know, for us,
we're not giving up our way.
We don't feel that's giving anything away. It's just sharing love, you know, radiating love. There's a difference between this. There's a difference between projection, when someone's projecting on someone, or when it's a reflection. You know, when there's a deep reflection where someone's going through and they're triggered. They're like, you know, there's a reflection for them. They're angry, they're upset.
Wow,
that's a deep reflection for themselves to go through.
Oh, sure.
And you know, just by being loving, oh yeah, that's not real. Just because people haven't experienced the depths of real love. That's true for some. And unfortunately, that's always going to lead you to that separative model. But when there's a heart that goes, you know,
okay,
I'm going to just open. I'm going to keep open. I'm going to remain open. If it resonates, it resonates. Beautiful.
Exactly.
And the more that it resonates, you follow that resonance. And then you realize that you don't choose to project, because anything that you say about somebody else you're just saying it to yourself. And by the way, psychologically, your subconscious has no differentiation between this person or that person. It just hears what you speak of and what you think of, and it just reinforces itself again. So anytime you project onto someone else, you're literally multiplying it to return to you times 100. Like you don't, and it will. Like that's just simple psychology 101 here. But beyond that, when you stop projecting and you start taking responsibility for yourself and for your emotions and for your feelings and for your behaviors, and you stop expecting someone to fix you and someone to give you what you can't find within yourself, and you actually let that all go, let that whole model go, and you remain open and you surrender to the whole analogy of us versus them, the whole duality of us versus them, and you open up your heart, you start receiving the real transmission that we're speaking. You start receiving a real transmission that's being literally broadcast through everything we do, everything we say, and everything that we offer. So really, anyone's life experience, that's why we don't lend an ear to ill words. If someone wants to talk about someone, it's like, no, now when there's a lesson there where someone's going through, what we do is sometimes highlight that lesson that one's going through in order for them to see it within themselves and learn from that, so they get out of that, because that's what a teacher does. Is here's a blind spot, here's a clear blind spot. It's up to you what you choose to see from that or transcend from that. But at the end of the day, we know what we came for, and we know what we're here for. We know what will come from it all, and we love because we are love, not because we want love, not because we want anything really. Even when there's a financial exchange, this is the big trigger for people. Oh, you shouldn't charge for spirituality. It's like, okay,
we're not actually.
What is spirituality? Transcends the world. For example, anything truly spiritual transcends the world. Now, anything that is benefit of the world is in the nature of the empirical world, there's a transaction. So there's an energetic exchange. If you're saying like, I don't want to do this because I don't want to pay for something. Well, it's not about telling the universe. What you're saying, what your worth is, right? Oh, I'm not worth this, basically, is what you're saying to yourself unconsciously. But regardless of all that, we offer so many things, and we just created actually 4 free paths that we're so in rapture and joy to share as a free pathway, because there is certain situations where people are going through certain socioeconomic experiences that they don't actually have the generosity that they feel in their heart to offer. Exactly. So
that was one of the main things when we did get together, when we reunited in this lifetime, as we said, that it would be essential in the coming years that we were able to put together a free path for anybody of any socio-economical, cultural, faith, religion, anything, to be able to walk in a pure, non-dogmatic, 100% non-dual expression of the truth, to walk into freedom, to walk that without having to give anything but the heart. And that's what we've just created now. And we are world builders. And why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this. We're putting all of this together. We're creating sanctuaries everywhere. It's so vast.
We're here to create the golden age. Literally, we're here to build it. We're here to support it. We're here to invite everyone to it.
Exactly. But why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this so that all the beloveds who can't give financially, who don't have that, can come and live in a reality that is the golden age.
That's sustainable.
That are bhaktas truly from the heart, that are devotional, that just want to sit around and sing and chant and be in the presence of the grace of God, Mother, Father, God, in all aspects, to be able to come and have a life like that. That's why we're building worlds right now. And that's why it is important to be able to have both and the balance of both as teachers.
And the truth is, we actually don't receive anything. Everything, all that we have is our actual public charity. So any contribution that goes to the charity, people think it's going to us. It's like, no, we're already sustained. It's going into the organization to sustain the organization and the growth and everything that we're doing in the message of the golden age, where sanctuaries aren't built on hopes and dreams. They're built with hands, with energy, with hearts, with finances, with all of it. It takes everything to support that in order for there to be this self-sustained model for all to receive that are willing, to do that deep dive within. So for us, to answer your question, just as a summary, is that anything that is projected, when you project love, you can't actually, because what you do with love is you radiate love. So when love is ignited inside you and you try to project that out, it won't work. When you actually feel that love inside you and you radiate that love, what it's doing is harmonically inducting you into a greater love. So when we don't see the duality of this end of the spectrum to this end of the spectrum, there's only actually that one spectrum of unconditional love. And when one is brought into that presence, they're more loving, they're more kind, they're more generous, they're more giving, they're more forgiving, because that's their true nature.
But then when they leave us,
that may look different.
That might look different.
And there's sometimes the ignorance that can come through, which one ignores that love, and then they get caught into the repression ideas of duality and fear and separation. And that's because they haven't allowed their heart to consume their minds with love.
And right now, as we've shared for years now, that right now there's a great polarization that is happening, and purification. And we, our beautiful community and family of light, is integral to what happens next, to the birthing of the golden age. And it is a micro within the macrocosm. And so there are going to be situations that occur naturally. Of course there will be. And how do you handle that? As a rite of passage, you love it even more. You give it even more light. You respect it even greater, because we know what comes next. We know what the birthing of the golden age looks like. And sometimes through birthing, there are birthing pains. And they're not pains as though they are holding any sort of negative experience. But birthing pains are just that. It is a learning experience for the all in order to birth something that is more beautiful, more holy, and completely different. And so we know exactly what we're here for. We know exactly what we signed up for. We know exactly what our rites of passage were going to be. And we love every moment of it.
It's not the first time this has happened.
It's not a first time. Let's just say that.
Oh, beautiful. So well expressed. And, I'd love to, in a moment, shift over to questions from our audience and our community. And perhaps while Avea starts to look for the questions, I just wanted to ask one more question based on something you said about the ego. I heard you share, that the ego is flawed, and that and that you suggest letting go of the ego. And I'm curious what definition of the ego you're coming from, because from my perspective, I see it more from a neutral standpoint, where I guess I would define the ego as your mind-made self-identity, your character in the game. And, and I'm reminded of something I once read in the Sophia Code, channeled or spoken by Isis, where she said, the sooner you accept yourself as royalty, the sooner your ego can rest. And so I'm curious, with that said, what definition you're coming from and what exactly you're meaning by ego.
Yeah, good points. We're very neutral when it comes to the understanding of ego. Now, there is definitely a negative charge around the personification of the lower minds. So we define the Freudian or Jungian version of the ego, which is that self-made character personification, that's the individual, that's in divide,
that binds you.
That binding aspect. We're talking about that as a PDF, basically: projections, defenses, and fears. That's what the ego is made up of. Just make it very simple. It's a PDF system, and it's projection, defenses, and fears. That lower mind ego. Now, the ego, in the sense of just the sense of self, just a sense of aliveness, without putting a definition on that, without putting a subscription to something of a narrative, but just that sense of the I am, that individuated expression that is expressing this expression. That is the neutral ego. And there's actually 3 different versions of that ego. There's the Thomastic ego, which is the lazy, the blaming, the victim. That victimized ego, the shadow tendency ego. Mm-hmm. Then there's the Rajastic, which is the Raja means royal, actually. It's the ambitious, because it's considered the highest success in the world would be like the king or the queen, or there would be that you have ownership of things. That's the ambitious model. It's sort of, what can life give me? What life does for me, sort of thing. Like there's that aspect, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just seeing it clearly for what that model is. Then there's the Sattvic ego, which is the pure, and it's not really an ego because it's this pure expression. It's the selfless energy. It's the humble expression. It's the compassionate, the merciful. And so the first one is the veil, basically, the veiled ego, the veiled mind. It doesn't see, it sees duality, it's a victim. It sees nothing, basically,
There's
other
a lot
than
of
itself.
Confusion in that one.
The Rajastic one is more like it's opening up. It wants to share its gifts, and it wants to explore and share, and it's inquisitive, and there's a beauty to that. There's an innocence to that. There's a nobility to that, actually. That's a noble ego.
There is a noble quality to it. And there are 2 sides.
Yeah. Then there's the Sattvic, and the Sattvic is more the unveiled, where you see that love, that bliss, that beauty through in all life. You see that light, and there's that aliveness.
No love, there's no conflict.
Exactly. That's what bliss is, right? Bliss is that there's no friction. That's what a smooth ride is, essentially. You're living life, and you're not going through potholes. You're living a nice, balanced life. You're not seeking this or seeking that. You're actually enjoying what unfolds naturally. And so that's sort of the definition that we understand the ego as, through,
and then there's something that transcends
through the Vedantic, Eastern model of that perception of the aliveness within. But that also gets transcended. There is a transcendence of even that. But again, we won't go there because that's not realistic right now, for many. So, but that's really the trapping of the ego, is where one creates this division. And that's what the whole word demon came from, the division of mind, like division of mind, demon. So when one is in division, one's seeing separation. They're in the darkness still. They haven't quite seen the full spectrum of the lights. And that's that division. So there can be tendencies that are traumatic. There can be dramatic tendencies. There can be certain conditioning psychologies that aren't virtuous. So when one comes into the virtuous nature, one starts manifesting that. That's known as the divine personality, the divine personage, where one's manifesting more bliss, and that's more the angelic. The right angulations of divinity coming through and expressing that. So this is where we see it in its spectrum, we see it in its neutrality, and we see it really as just a process of how the mind has surrendered to love. That's all it is. And everyone needs to have success in life.
That's very important.
But success doesn't mean a mansion and a big bank account. Success looks like having beautiful relationships, having deep connection, having deep meaning and purpose. That success, whether it's in relationships, whether it is financial, fantastic, whatever, whether it is health, success in health, success in your career, success in your vocation, your artistry, whatever that may be, it's feeling that sense of gratitude and respect from yourself and from your peers. So there's a social level of respect and appreciation, and there's a self-respect and appreciation that is success. And that is the preparation for actually walking a spiritual path. These are all preliminary before you become fully absorbed in the highest truth, in the highest knowledge. So I hope that helps when it comes to that. But when we spoke about the negative, it was the PDF, model that can be
right.
understood.
And what we're talking about, beloveds, because you've asked us specific questions, and you've asked us about triggers, and you've asked us about the pains, and you've asked about things. So we're speaking directly into your question. There is a plethora of things that we can share, the beauty and the wonder and the importance of that level of mind. But we're not talking into that. We're talking about the ego that fears annihilation in the face of love. We're talking about the ego that holds on so tightly because it's terrified of letting go, to find out, wait, I might not be needed in that same way any longer. And if I'm not needed in that same way any longer, then what happens next? Who do I then become? And there's this misperception that there is a becoming. It is an unlearning. It is a peeling away of everything so that the beauty and the grace and the love of your heart can shine forth. And that leads your way. And that is your guiding light. And that is what you recondition. If you're going to condition yourself, you recondition yourself so that the path ahead is led by the heart, not in fear of where it's going to lead you, but to trust that it knows innately, intrinsically, exactly where you need to go.
And there's a beauty within that journey. That there's a perceptual journey from the unbecoming. There's that perceptual layers peeling away, where there's self-esteem that comes naturally, and then social esteem as well that comes from peers, and that's that respect that naturally unfolds, because that's the noble way. When you actually experience more connection, because everyone wants to feel connection. Everyone wants to have connection with themselves, connection with others. That happens naturally the more you become a truer expression of your heart. So the more that you walk this spiritual path, the many boons that come in your life. You also have to relinquish and let go of certain things that are unserving.
A lot of things.
But there's a lot of blessings from just walking the path. And one of the biggest traps, just to complete, and then we'll go into questions, is that thinking you're further along the path than you actually are. That's the biggest trap that we see, is many spiritual egos that think, are a lot more advanced than they think they are. The true merit of how far you are is that when you close your eyes and you go within, there's this unwavering peace. There's just this deep stillness of peace that you can actually penetrate and transcend the mind. And then when you open your eyes,
still the mind.
Yes, you can control it from its stillness. And then when you come out, it's what can I give? Not what the world owes me or what the world can give me. It's like, what can I give? So it's peace and stillness, a deep, deep peace and stillness of all faculties to be one in the presence of truth, of love. And then when you open your eyes, it's, what can I give? How can I share? That's the true merit of how far one has progressed.
And even to take that even further, it's no longer so much what can I give, it's exactly what you're already giving and what you're here to share. There's no question. The questions cease.
Yeah.
It's just stillness.
So good.
So good.
So incredibly good. Wow. Yeah, when you said that, I got reminded one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs is "What More Can I Give?"
Yeah, I don't know if I know that.
Yeah, and what is
Sure.
love? Giving that,
Send it to us.
giving that love is like the highest, pure intention, pure love, pure action, pure love in action. I mean, that's a noble life. That's a life to be glorified. That's a life to feel like absolutely grateful for. And everyone's on that journey. It might just take them more lifetimes than they want or would like, but everyone's on that journey back to love, because love is where you begin, love is where you end, and love is what transcends it all.
Love that.
Such a perfect moment.
Perfect note. Yeah.
To shift into the question.
Yes.
So good.
So
did
good.
you find some good questions?
I didn't start looking because I wanted to listen. Okay.
The sun.
I didn't see any with the sun.
Yes, the emoji of the sun didn't work in the email.
Oh, I see. We told our members as well. Just give us a brief moment, little moment for pause.
Perfect.
We are timeless.
Okay. All right. So this question is from Laura. So she says, can you expand more on devotion and purification? How to devote yourself when there's so much inside that wants to hold you back from devoting to God, to love, and to the heart?
Thank you, Laura. Beautiful question.
The devotion that we speak of is a deep well of gratitude and appreciation. And when you have appreciation and gratitude for the most simplest things, your breath, the fact that you can wake up in the morning, the fact that you have a roof over your head and you have food to sustain you. When you take those little things not for granted and you appreciate life, you start seeing more to be appreciated of. And when it comes to God or comes to love, sometimes when one hasn't had a transformative experience or hasn't had a deep connection to that, or brought up in a societal structure that takes one away from that, or that has experienced that through religious overtones and undertones that were so separating and so fearful, sometimes that becomes confusing of what God is, because it's coming from a model that isn't relative to where maybe you're at now in your life. And so what we notice is that when you're grateful, not because you're trying to find gratitude, but you simply just acknowledge that gratitude is present, you start slowly peeling back the layers. And the most key ingredient to this is faith. Not blind faith, like, okay, I'm just going to give my faith away and see. It's faith to be proven. It's faith that will one day be proven to you. It's a faith that will allow you to understand why there's been that pain to begin with. And when you have an opening, it can just be like a keyhole at first, and then the little bit of light shines through, and you feel that you appreciate that, you cultivate that, and you live a life of expressing that, then you start chipping away at this once that was a block, and it starts revealing that masterpiece that has been there all along, and it dissolves the idea of something separate, because love brings you back into the unity of God, of true presence.
And Laura, beloved Laura, we ask you to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? What are you really afraid of feeling? What is it? What is it that was so painful when you were open, that disallowed you to remain open? And immediately I see for you a 7-year-old little girl. And so personally, for the one who has asked the question, what was it that created the closure to begin with? Because when I tune in, I feel tears, a lot of tears. And why are people afraid to feel? Why are people afraid to feel pain? Why is everybody always just wanting to feel comfortable and happy all the time? Because there's something piercing inside. And when something pierces like that, it has the ability to shut down the senses, all senses, senses to connect to the divine, senses to connect to your intuition, senses that connect to really allow you connection with another person, with another expression of yourself. And so a simple question is, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of feeling? And don't be afraid to feel it. Don't be afraid to feel that. In fact, allow your love, your desire for love to be greater than your fear. Allow your desire to love to feel and fill you more than any potential dread or fear could ever bring you. And then sit with that.
I felt that one in every fiber of my being. And that's definitely a very powerful, reflective question in terms of what was it in your state of openness that caused you to close down. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a great follow-up question. This is from Elaine. And Elaine is asking, or she's saying, I would like to open my heart more, and I end up feeling poorly about myself because I can't open up fast enough. I know you touched on this being about the ego, but how can I avoid blaming myself so often?
Remember, we can feel everything, feel everybody's everything, especially when there's a focused moment. Unworthiness, if we go back into the seeding of humanity, we talk about God, we talk about what has been understood. There is an unconscious and maybe even conscious, but more unconscious collective that believes that God has abandoned them. They believe that somewhere God has forsaken them. They believe that somewhere along the line, the children have been left to be by themselves, by yourselves. But no. And this is where this is important to shift, because this is so deep within, and it might not be something that feels like it's at the surface right now. But if you go deep, we've seen it so many times, and it's coming through now for a reason. Time moves in a different way, in different densities, in different realms. In the earth realm, time moves very slowly because it holds a lot of density. To understand that the job or the mission or the purpose of God is generation, operation, and destruction. To understand that is to understand. Shall I let you sit with that for a moment?
That was good. Yeah. Oh. But please continue.
To understand that God allows and the children create. It is not that anything or anyone has ever abandoned you. It is not even possible for one to be abandoned, for there is only one being here. And it is the multiplicity of experience that has created the pain. But if you can return back to knowing that there is no such thing as abandonment, that there is no such thing as being separate from that which created all of this, then you can allow yourself to feel worthy of that love. You can know that Mother, Father, God did not abandon you and that that's not even possible. But just like a child chooses to leave home to experience a reality separate from that holding, from that container that is so safe because it wants to know what it feels like to go out in the world. Thus is the same for the creation of the children. And so we say, go and experience and explore. We're not going anywhere. Whether you can feel that or not, whether you want to return back home to that safety and to that love, that is up to you. And that, beloved David and Ave, is exactly what we hold for our beloveds. It's that safe space. Go and come back when you're ready to feel.
And just to speak into that beautiful expression, and as simple as being aware of that pain, of that self-judgment, being aware of that, that's the presence of God right there. Just awareness. Just awareness. Just awareness without anything else. Just okay. Feeling that pain. It's okay to feel pain. It's okay to feel like you haven't tapped into the depths of your infinite heart. It's okay to feel that maybe your heart has been closed because you weren't loved as a child, or you weren't upheld in love, and love feels foreign. Love feels actually a bit scary because it feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar. It's okay. Be knowing in that fear is actually safe. It's safe to feel that. It's actually normal to feel that for some that are going through that. But be aware of it. And if you stay aware of it, just being aware of the self-talk, the self-chatter, just coming back a moment, just taking a look at that, instead of identifying with that and letting that start constricting the body and constricting the heart, but just be aware of that for a moment. And in that awareness, you can choose love, because that awareness is the unfolding expression of love. We say everything is love and light. What we mean by that is that love is awareness, right? So the awareness that you are is that love. The experience of light, which is the infinity of all of the multiplicity of life, all the photonic expressions that allow you to experience a tree, a flower, the grass, the mountains, the sky, the stars, the moon, the magic of all of life. That is the photonic light. So that all of life is light. And that is...
You would not be able to see it.
That is life itself. So love as the witness, light as the creation, and life as the experience of it are all one and the same thing. That's why all is love and light, truly. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that, though. Why doesn't it feel like that, though? I want to feel that love and light. I want to feel that goodness for myself. I want to feel that.
You have to believe you're worthy of it.
That's a start. And then looking into forgiveness, simple things like forgiveness, like,
which we've talked about.
We've spoke about that, and it's just simple things like, who are the people that you might have a list of that you might need to and send them love. Wake up in the morning and go, oh my gosh, thank you for another beautiful day. Thank you for this breath. I send love to all the ones that you send love to, just sending them love. That's really your capacity of devotion. The more willing you are to give love freely. The more willing you are to give love freely with no expectation is your greater ability to be devoted and experience the love of God, period. That's it.
Those who are truly devoted will know love deeper than those who are not. It will always be this way. Yeah. It will never change.
Wow. There's so much I loved in what you shared, I love the truth of how simply having your awareness on whatever is you're experiencing inside yourself is God, is love. Having that consciousness is very helpful. And I also love the insight you shared, Shekinah, about God allows and the children create. Just so many beautiful things to play with there. Yeah. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah.
Would you like to read the next one?
Which one? This one?
We have time for one more, beloveds.
We really have time only for one more.
Yes. As enjoyable as this is.
Perfect.
This one?
I didn't read it yet.
Oh. I feel like this one is...
Yeah, go with your feeling.
Okay, so Mila asks, can you speak more of the dynamic between determination and allowing? As in, when do we know that our determination is not aligned? And how much do we consciously invest in it? So the difference,
good question,
between determination and allowing, and when one is aligned more than the other.
Okay, I can definitely answer this very, very briefly. If your determination, when you close your eyes and you feel you're determined to get something or to do something, but there's any fear that you won't have it, or any fear that it won't come to you, that is not aligned.
Wow.
Yeah, simply the detachment from the expectation of the outcome is knowing that it's aligned. Because if you have an expectation of that outcome, then you're bounded to that expectation. But when you let go of that expectation, what you generally experience is the perfect alignment of whatever shall unfold.
No agenda, no fear. You are being carried in that alignment. If you're not feeling carried, it is likely a willful nature and it is not aligned with the divine.
And just check if there's synchronicities that speak to you. Is there synchronistic events that happen? Because when it's in aligned, it's aligned. Like there's, the signs are there, the alignments just happen. It's the difference between this, and we'll make this really, really simple, is rowing your boat or sailing your boat. There's this striving, I have to strive and I have to do this.
Or the wind is just...
Or the wind takes you there. But how do you get into that balance? It takes some time. Okay, but you have to investigate what you want, why you want it. You have to investigate, because freedom is not the fulfillment of your desires, it's the freedom from your desires. Everyone wants these desires, like, oh, I want this and I want that and I want this and I'm determined to make that happen. freedom isn't to give you satisfaction and fulfillment from the desires that you're seeking.
That binds you and will continue to bind you over and over.
It transcends the desires altogether. So when...
But it doesn't transcend the necessarily having of it.
Exactly. You can still have it all.
Have it all.
But you're not squeezing onto it. You're not like gripping onto it.
Dissolve at any moment, anything that's needed. Shift, realign. Don't be afraid.
The beautiful thing is that you can never be attached, even if you try to.
That's what I was talking into earlier, that there's no such thing as attached.
You think you're attached. But are you really? When something's leaving you, even if it's as intimate as your physical body, are you really attached to the body? Because it's not attached to you. Really,
only momentarily.
But enjoy it. But see it for what it is. See it for what the divine that it is, and investigate these attachments. Because the mind will convince you that you're attached. The mind will convince you that you want this because of conditioning. Society pumps it into you. You need this. You need that. Well, actually, you can have it all. But you're actually never going to have something that you already are. That's the truth is.
But that's the thing. If you are one who is always needing more and more and more, then it will never be enough. Nothing will ever be enough. If that desire for more is there, that is not aligned.
The famous words of Yeshua was when asked, well, how do I have peace? It's like he shared, seek less. Seek less. Give more. And those two aspects are pretty much there. When you seek less and you give more. And instead of seeking to be first, seek to be last.
Let everything go before you.
Yeah, let everything go before you and support that. And most importantly, give everything to God. Do it all for God, because your life is an offering.
It is an offering.
Your life is an offering. That's the truth. Because on the last moment of your last breath, what do you think you're going to reflect on? What you have, what you've got? No, it's what you've shared, what you've given from love, how much love you feel in your heart, how much love you've shared with others. And sometimes you need to contemplate your death before you contemplate the world that you want to live or the life that you want to have for yourself. You want to contemplate, because the truth is, this life is what you can give. It's all about what you can give.
And I'd like to conclude this by saying that this life is an altar. And ask this question to all beloveds. What is your offering?
Wow. Well, that was a very profound note to conclude on. And I'm sure everyone here would love to know how to get in touch with you guys, how to connect more. You guys mentioned also you have some beautiful free offerings that you've been really excited to put out there. So we'd love to let people know. And obviously we will also put the links in the video as well, so you guys can click. But yes, please.
Yeah, and retreats, if you care to speak about your retreat.
Yeah. Well, we spoke of earlier about the divine paths. This is a new offering, and it will be being built out throughout the year. So we will be releasing things periodically. We're starting with the divine path of divine love. And so just on our website, if you want to show our website, beloved, you can do that as well. Share your screen. And it's very simple, twinray.com. And Twin Ray, for beloveds that don't know what Twin Ray means, it means divine union, essentially. It's the masculine and feminine in complete harmony. It's heaven on earth in complete balance. It's the divine alchemy, that sacred marriage within you. It's a message of spiritual non-duality. It's not about
It's a beacon of hope for the world.
Yeah, that's very much what it is. And if you scroll down just a moment, that it shows discover the 4 divine paths, and that's where you can experience a free video series. We just created a new platform, and yeah, so if you're
we just brought forth the School of Divinity.
Yes,
Twin Ray School of Divinity.
It's in its preliminary stages. We've just soft launched it. But yeah, if you click that, beloved David, just click access your free video. If you click that, it will take you to divine paths of freedom,
yes,
which is divine love, divine service, divine alchemy, and divine truth.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And if anyone is interested in retreats that you may be hosting, where can they find that?
Yes, if you go to / Divinus, you might have to type this in. I don't think it's live on our site, but it would be.
No, it's not.
It's / Divinus - retreats.
We think that would work.
Without the S. Yes. And this is our next gathering. So if you feel called, yes, you can join us. But yeah,
I think we sent you the link, beloved David, so you could put it into the 2 links I've sent you on. On the telephone.
Beautiful. Well,
amazing.
All of those look extra magical.
Yeah.
I know me and Nevaeh definitely want to come and to be there.
Yes, absolutely.
And just thank you again so much for your time, your energy, your love, your wisdom, and for just making this such a magical and profound experience for everyone who joined, including ourselves.
Yes. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It's such a beautiful joy to be with you. Really, you get to ask such deep questions, and we can feel that innocence, that enthusiasm. And I love that word enthusiasm. It's entheos. It's in God. That word in God, theos, and it just. We hope that everyone that's joined has received something that has deepened their connection for. Yeah, it's deepened their connection to that truth within them, and deepened their connection to love. And thank you for being beacons of joy and a beautiful couple of inspiring others. We love you both dearly, and we send our love to your community and to all our beloved community that had joined as well.
And as you know, we're always here, which you do. Anytime you need anything or questions or any way that we can guide your journey.
Yeah.
So appreciate that.
Thank you
so much.
So much.
Yeah.
Yes. And thank you for everyone who joined in. The replay will be posted on their platform and on our platforms. And we're wishing you a magical day.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Beautiful beloveds.